It's funny. You would think that it's just a pretty straightforward business, but it's definitely way more intricate than I ever even imagined. There's lots of moving parts with dynamic pricing based on times of day, supply demand, supply during the day versus demand, and how that adjusts during nights, how it adjusts on the weekends, special events. You got monthly parking aspects, you got transient parking, you've got different influences in the marketplace that change from month to month. So there's a lot of different moving pieces of the puzzle with parking. But the good thing about it was, and what one of the many reasons that attracted us to it is that while in the manufactured housing side of our business, we've got a full blown vertically integrated property management company. We've got I don't know, 60, 70, 80, folks on staff and payroll throughout the company. It's not the sexy part of the business, but it's, I always joke, say it's a necessary evil. I don't want to, hopefully none of the staff listen to this as I say that, but it's not a very profitable side of the business. I mean, it's kind of if you can break even with the property management, then you're doing good. Right. And so we didn't want to have to rebuild that. We didn't have to want to build a completely new vertical for parking. I just didn't have an interest in doing that again. But the good thing about parking is there's a great deal of very advanced, large on a national scale. Some are just market by market and regional. Some are nationally present.
You're listening to the Real Estate Runway Podcast, powered by Quattro Capital, where we're all about alternative business and investment strategies to help you amplify life and maximize wealth. Here's your host, Aaron, the Deal Dynamo.
Well, hello. Another great day. Aaron Hudson and Kevin Bupp coming to you live. Welcome to the Real Estate Runway Podcast. Today, listen, you are going to get some goodness. I don't think I've ever got to interview someone where I truly felt like, oh my gosh, everything that I've learned about this gentleman, I feel like we are cut from the same cloth on so many fronts. And so you're going to learn some new things about me, but more importantly, our guest today, Kevin Bupp. So before we get started, pal, how about if you just tell the folks a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are, what you're doing, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure thing. And again, Aaron, thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here. Kevin Bupp, I'm the CEO of Sunrise Capital Investors. We're a private equity firm, specializing in mobile home parks and parking investments. And so parking garages, parking lots, mobile home parks is kind of our bread and butter, but we also own parking assets in a number of different states. But backing up, Aaron, to answer your question about a little bit more about me and kind of, where I came from, I guess you could say. I'm 45 now. I got introduced to real estate. I always joke and say that real estate found me. I didn't find it. So I'm very grateful for that. But I got introduced to real estate at 19. Through a gentleman. Funny story, but basically I was dating a girl. Her mother was dating a guy, and this guy, David, became my mentor. He was a local real estate investor. And so he got me on my start. I worked for him for free for about a year and a half and just basically did everything and anything that he needed. He was kind of a solopreneur, and followed him around, dropped leases off, picked leases up, went to Home Depot, picked up supplies, picked up coffee, did whatever needed to be done. But in between going to local community college and just taking classes and tending bar in the evenings, I spent as much time around him as possible, just so I could hear him talk with again, whether it be real estate agents, investors, homeowners that are looking to sell their home, this, that, and the other. And so I learned the business by just being around him. It was kind of funny to my friends at that point in time, because they're like, why are you hanging out with this old guy? Right. And I was like, there's something here. Like, there's something here that I can wrap my arms around. So that was the start of it. I bought the first property when I was 20. I went off. I didn't go off my own per se, but I used some money I saved up bartending to buy that first property at the age of 20, and that was the start of it. And ramped things up in my the first like 6 years of I guess my early 20s, and ended up with a couple hundred single family homes, a few hundred smaller multi-family doors, and then the progression kind of went from there. Got introduced to commercial real estate during that stage. Owned just about everything. I've had, self-storage, I've had retail, office, still have some of that today, industrial, assisted living, but really landed on, mobile home parks back in 2011. So like that's literally been what our entire focus has been for over a decade now. It's what we do. We own assets in 14 different states, and it's what we love. And so that's a really quick condensed version of kind of the 20 plus years of me being an investor.
I love it. Well, let's break this down a little bit because you just
Sure,
made it
sure.
sound, I started at 20 and now I own this,
Yeah.
this, and this. But your background is absolutely fascinating. You are an incredible entrepreneur, but let's go back and let's talk about at 19, you said that within 6 years, you had a couple hundred units under your
Mhm.
belt. How in the world did you do that? Was that by yourself? And you saved up some money from the bartending, but come on, let's be honest, as a
Yeah.
bartender, you can't have
Yeah.
enough to buy
So that's
200
7
plus
grand. I
units,
used
right?
almost every penny of it, and along with a private lender who
Right?
I got to know through David at that time, right? So I leveraged his relationships, and then, like, that really was a start. But I mean, long story short, this was in Pennsylvania. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, which is the capital, but it's a really small city. There's not even a lot going on there now. There definitely wasn't a lot going on there 20 years ago. Wasn't a lot of growth happening. And I just hated the cold anyway. So like I invested there for about a year and a half, and just really wanted to find a reason to go somewhere else. Not just for the growth of the business, but just better weather. And so ultimately became Florida. I made my way down to Florida, ended up in Tampa, which I've lived here ever since. This is back in 2002. But the cool thing about when I moved down here, there was a ton of growth happening, still a lot of growth happening.
Sure.
But it was a much larger market, but it was a very active real estate investment market. And so I was very quickly able to plug in, which is, I mean, there was, gosh, even a lot of the original gurus from way back in the day, literally their home base was here in my back. I didn't know that at that point in time, but
Yeah.
literally I was in their backyard. And so there was investment meetings after investment meetings. I mean, any given month, there could be 3 or 4 different investment clubs that you could go to within a countywide distance. And so I just plugged myself in, and I got surrounded by some incredible individuals. And, within the first year, probably with like the 6 months of living here, I ended up meeting who's still an incredible friend of mine to this day, Rod Cleef and his family. He's based about an hour south of me. Still great. I just talked to him yesterday. Great friends to this day. But he owned 700 or 800 single family homes back then, and I just became friends with him. That became my really the launching pad here in Florida. And I just literally modeled. I never try to reinvent the wheels, right? David was a small time investor. He did things great, things that worked for him. I modeled him. And then I saw how maybe some of the bigger players did it, i.e.
Sure.
Rod and his team, and just literally modeled exactly what they did, and just rinsed and repeated it. And so, I'm still that way today. I don't like trying to fix things that aren't broken. I mean, if it works,
Sure.
and there's efficiencies with it, and there's profitability, surely we're always looking for ways to evolve, right? But I don't try to go chase the shiny things. Just do what has been proven already by others that are already doing it, right?
Amen
So
to that.
that's
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, listen, I will say thank goodness for the girl that you were dating, but more
that's
importantly
right.
for Dave. Everybody has to have a start someplace. So for
Yeah.
those of you that are listening, he nailed it right on the head. Find a mentor or somebody that's doing that you have some interest in, and ride that coattail. And he also, the one thing that is powerful is you did it for free for a year,
Mhm.
right? So you had to pay to play almost, which is great as well. And then you have Mr. Rod Cleef, who's a whole nother level, right? So you
That's right.
continue to climb the ladder. The other thing that I found that was fascinating about you is you truly have this entrepreneur background where I think you had a clothing company, a mortgage company. What else did you have? So clearly you're an entrepreneur at heart. What else did you have?
Yeah, I mean, ever since a young age, I grew up in but both my parents worked. We didn't go without. We weren't poor, but we were definitely, just middle class. Went on one vacation a year, and most of the time it was by car, right? Like whatever was in like a 6-hour driving distance, we'd go there. Whether it was a theme park or just maybe to stay in a hotel for 4 or 5 days. That was like exciting to us kids. But but at a young age, I was really interested in like being able to buy the things I wanted. I just, everyone, we had, Christmas came, and that's when you kind of got maybe a couple of things that were like the newest cool things, whether it be a bicycle or a motor car, dirt bike, or whatever at stage of the life, sports equipment. And I was just, and I didn't have like wealthy friends around me to where I was like envious of what they had and I didn't have. I just wanted certain things, and I wanted to be able to go make my own money and actually buy them. I mean, that's really how it started. And so, I mean, from shoveling snow, mowing grass. It's funny. I joke about it now because I remember riding my bike up to the gas station, which was like a half mile away, with a 1-gallon gas can, riding home with it full, with one hand. I'm like, 7, 8 years old. And now like that would be, punishment, child punishment, right? Child endangerment. But like doing that, literally ride home with one hand with gasoline, mowing the
Sure.
grass with a lawnmower that didn't have an automatic shut off on it, right? Like that could cut your toes off. But I did everything and anything I could to make money. I just tried to hustle and make my own money. I got a paper
Yeah.
out when I was 12. And then, really, I think the first entrepreneurial endeavor I had as a kid outside like the paper, because that was a job, right? Like I didn't start that business. I just kind of stepped into that role. Was
Right.
my father was in electronics, and I had a brother that was 6 years older than me. So when I was, 10 and 11, he was driving age, and him and his friend back then, it was really cool to have real loud stereos in your car, have amplifiers and speakers, all this kind of stuff. My dad was in electronics. My dad taught me how to install, head units like radios in cars and amplifiers and all this. So I used our family's garage to basically install stereos. I became like the kid that wasn't old enough to drive, but everyone would come to our garage and I would install stereo systems for, them and their friends and all that. And anyway, just anything I could do to make a dime. But by the time I was 18, 19, I graduated high school, Aaron, I didn't know what I wanted to do though. I had no idea. I wanted to do something big, but I didn't have any type of focus. That's why I joke and say that real estate found me, and it found me at a really good point in time because I was having fun tending bar, but I was
Right.
kind of bored as well. Like I wasn't fulfilled. Like I didn't feel like I was utilizing my life's purpose, but I didn't know what that life purpose was. So grateful for David, grateful for the girl I dated at the time that introduced me to
Yeah.
David. And I don't know what I'd be doing today if that didn't take
That's
place.
fantastic. Well, listen, you definitely are an entrepreneur with grit and you've done a whole lot of things in your life. But so then you move on to this real estate and now your thing is really these mobile home parks. So is that
Mhm.
like, I know you mentioned a few things you're doing, but is the mobile home parks like 80% of what you have, or are you really diversified there?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got two different verticals, and mobile home parks is one, and then parking. So we own parking
Okay.
garages and parking lots, but the parking investment vertical didn't really get introduced until we didn't buy the first one until 2020, and so it had been a space that we had been watching and learning and educating ourselves in for probably about 3 years prior. But we
Wow.
really didn't make the dive. We like to stay our lane. We like to stick with what we're really good
Yeah.
at. I mean, I've got personal investments in traditional multifamily like you're in, and
Yeah.
self and all. I love pretty much every other asset class. They're all great in their own way, but we like to stick our own lane. Stick with what we're good at,
Totally.
and don't diversify too much to where you get diluted with your focus. And so, but mobile home parks makes up about 75% of our portfolio.
Okay.
And we end up buying about one parking deal per year. That's kind of been the trend over the last 4 years. And so, but
That's
both
fantastic.
both great assets. Mobile home parks. It's kind of both those asset classes are. It's just something I had never considered many years back. I mean, mobile home parks, I just happened to have crossed it. And back in 2010 and 11, when I'd gone through 2008, lost pretty much everything, including my primary residence.
Sure.
And it was just, basically disaster control for like 3 years following '08. And then looked for kind of what was the plan, next time around, like what's the plan to rebuild? And I just happened to meet a guy by the name of Randy, who was introduced to me by a mutual friend. Randy was a commercial banker for many years, had just retired, and upon retirement went and bought 3 RV parks here in Florida. And he bought those because he made a joke with me when I had lunch with him one day. He's like, I was on the wrong side of that P&L. Every time I did loans for my clients, I realized how much money they were making, and they do cash out refinance. And he's like, I
Sure.
kind of made a vow that when I retired, I was going to go buy a couple of these things. And so I met Randy, and he told me, all the greatest things about mobile home parks and why I should look into it a little bit deeper. And that was
Sure.
it. I was like, okay. I left that lunch meeting, and took me about a year, but bought that first mobile home park and haven't stopped since.
That's fantastic. Which one do you think is more profitable? The
You know,
mobile home park?
that's somewhat of a loaded question because I think every asset class is. I don't think one's more profitable than other. It's all about like number one, how you buy. I mean, if you buy, I mean, if you stick to your kind of your buy box, your parameters, they should be equally as profitable as the other, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily one's better than the other. It's all about how you buy it and then also how you operate it, and can you execute on the business plan that you set forth? And so, we've done really, really well on all the above. Some
Is it
deals.
more of a, I'm not as familiar with the parking lots, but is it more a set it and forget it, or is there a lot of work that goes into it?
It's funny. You would think that it's just a pretty straightforward business, but it's definitely way more intricate than I ever even imagined. There's lots of moving parts with
Wow.
dynamic pricing based on times of day, supply demand, supply during the day versus demand, and how that adjusts during nights, how it adjusts on the weekends, special events. You got monthly parking aspects, you got transient parking, you've got different influences in the marketplace that change from month to month. So there's a lot of different moving pieces of the puzzle with parking. But the good thing about it was, and one of the many reasons that attracted us to it is that, while in the manufactured housing side of our business, we've got a, full-blown vertically integrated property management company. We've got, I don't know, 60, 70, 80, folks on staff and payroll throughout the company. It's not the sexy part of the business, but it's, I always joke, say it's a necessary evil. I don't want to, hopefully none of the staff listen to this as I say that, but it's not a very profitable side of the business. I mean, it's kind of if you can break even with the property management, then you're doing good, right? And so we didn't want to have to rebuild that. We didn't have to want to build a completely new vertical for parking. I just didn't have an interest in doing that again. But the good thing about parking is there's a great deal of very advanced, large, on a national scale. Some are just market by market and regional. Some are nationally present management companies that manage the day-to-day parking. And they've got very advanced technology platforms, way more than we would ever be able to build out, right?
Sure.
And so we've got an asset manager in-house that oversees those investments, but all the rest of it is outsourced to third-party management. So
wow. And how do you, is it like parking spots? Like, how do you say what you own?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it's funny. I don't even know how many parking yet. Yeah, we just kind of use an AUM as the North Star. So we've got about 90 million of AUM in parking.
Very cool. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have many spaces that actually equate, so I'd have to think through it and do the math.
But let's see if I can stump you.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I know it's probably like 1,600 spaces or 1,700, somewhere around there.
And they're all in what area? One particular state or
all over the place? No, our most recent acquisition was in downtown Phoenix. We've got one in our backyard here in Clearwater Beach, so right in the Tampa Bay area. We've got stuff in North Carolina. So it just, it's got to be a growing and thriving market. So like first and foremost, it absolutely has to be a growing and thriving market. And second to that, it's got to be a concentrated area that has limited supply of new land. Because when we buy these, we want to look at it as parking. We're not developers, and so we don't underwrite it for what future value might be. But we want to know first and foremost that it makes sense today as parking. And we can get really excited about the economics today as parking. But second to that, we want to know absolutely with 99% confidence that it's going to have a higher and better use at a later date that will have a higher value than that of parking. And so it's just a matter of just waiting it out and cash flowing all the way. So cash flowing covered land play is how we look at it.
That's fantastic.
And so that only really happens in thriving marketplaces. So most of where we own are larger cities.
Okay. And then you said you have 80 staff members that are for management. Is that the same team that takes care of the parking as it is the parks?
No, we've got so we literally internally, we only have one, I should say 1.5, I guess you could say, dedicated individuals that are just really asset managers. But again, the asset management piece of that business model is so drastically different than the asset management piece of mobile home parks.
Gotcha.
There's some crossover here and there with some basics, but the operations are just a night and day difference. And so we've got a dedicated person on the parking side.
And then what have you guys got assets under management on your parks?
Well, I think it's, all combined, I think we're just shy of 300 million.
Okay. Well, congratulations. That's an incredible feat and success there. Tell me on these deals that you're doing, when was the last time that you purchased?
Mobile home parks, just a couple months ago. I guess we closed on our last park in February. Prior to that was December 29th, the last business day of the year. So we're actively buying parks. I think we've got a pretty big pipeline right now. We've got about $80 million in the pipeline of parks. Not saying they're all going to make it, to the finish line, but, and we have 0 currently in the pipeline on parking. So parking, we look at a lot of deals, lot of things come across our desk, but we're critical with everything, but we're overly critical with what the demand factors, like what the demand drivers are for parking. Because I don't want to have anything really to do with office. And a lot of parking was purposely built to support, maybe not the entirety of the parking, but a lot of it was purposely built, in the last, 10, 20, 30, 40 years to support an office building or multiple office buildings in a downtown urban core area. And so, we look at demand drivers being like, government, courthouses, nightlife, entertainment, retail, shopping, sports venues, like, football stadiums, baseball stadiums, what have you.
Sure.
And the majority of the demand needs to be made up of those 4 items. And the office can be there, but it needs to be such a minute, ideally 20% or less, in a perfect world, 10% or less. So that way, if it ever truly does just go away, we're still doing really, really well. Yeah. And so for that reason, a lot of parking deals, we can look at a ton, and they just get thrown down in the trash can because they're not a good fit.
Interesting. So tell me, with the market going wonky over the last 2 years, are you guys still have you same speed? Have you taken down less? Is it advantageous and you're not feeling it like everybody else has in the multifamily space? Maybe
it's interesting because I've got another partner. Myself and him are, we're basically co-owners of Sunrise, and he mostly is on the IR side of things. So he does all the runs the entire capital raising side of the business, and I'm more in the operational acquisitions and then operations, oversee that side of the business. And there's always been a push pull, right? Like when 2020, 2021, 2022 rates were at an all-time lows, and we had there's so much liquidity flooding the marketplace, and he was always pushing me, Kevin, we need to fill up this pipeline. I'm like, I'm just not willing to buy stuff that I can't make it pencil out. We're not buying. And so there was all this, tension, good tension, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm turning investors away, and they're getting pissed that I can't place this money. And I'm like, sorry. And so we actually, we probably sold as much as what we bought in those 3 years. We sold a lot of the deals that, now I'm looking back, I'm like, that was peak pricing. I didn't know it at the time. I'm like, we've owned this for 3 or 4 years. I can't remotely make sense of what the next buyer is paying for it. And we know all the skeletons, we know the good, the bad, and maybe we're not the best operators, but damn sure, they're stepping into it cold turkey. I don't know how they're making this work. So for that reason, let them have it, right? Let's take this money and run. And so we sold a lot during those 3 years, and we bought what made sense. Very few things did. We very rarely ever made it to final and best offer with brokers. A lot of the stuff we bought was direct to owner relationships that we had been establishing for many, many years. But I would say what's happened, Aaron, is it's we've got all fixed rate debt. We got really low loan to value. Maybe that doesn't provide the best leverage returns, but I tell you that we're sleeping at night. So are investors. We've had our 27th consecutive quarter of distributions. It's never, the only time it stopped was for like 3 weeks during the first stint of COVID, because we were like, the world might end. Let's see if collections come in April, and then we just resumed distributions as they were going prior. But what's really occurred is it's put us in a really good position to, there's not sellers are still trying to readjust to reality of what things should be worth or are worth in this marketplace, but we're making a ton of offers. We're buying great deals. And what I feel is that the things that are truly going up for sale today, you don't sell unless you have to sell at this point in time. Like if there's no forces pushing you to sell, you're not selling, you just hold, right? Like we have no interest in selling anything that we have right now, and we don't have to. We don't have any debt maturities coming up. And we've got, I think the shortest runway we have is like 3.5 years on anything that we have. And so we bought some great opportunities. Like last year was one of our biggest years. We bought just shy of $90 million worth of assets. This year we're hopefully we're shooting for, to match that or exceed that. So hopefully it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But, it allowed us to kind of not get put on a pedestal, but, brokers make money when they sell, and a lot of buyers are on the sidelines, and a lot of our competition has been on the sidelines. Not all of it. There's still things transacting, but it's put us in a really good position to take advantage of opportunity while it's here. So it was a vacuum in the marketplace.
Sure. I love that. Well, good for you. So tell me a little bit, are you guys a fund? Are you doing syndications, joint ventures? Like, are you doing a little bit of everything? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We've always run fund structures. We launched our very first fund, I guess, formally Sunrise Capital in 2017 was our first fund. Prior to that, we'd been buying parks just as individual standalone syndications with, personal money, personal capital, friends and family, things like that.
Sure.
2017 was really the first formal fund offering. We just launched our fourth fund now in December, or actually October of last year. Had the first acquisition in December. Second one, like I said, in February of this year. That's a $100 million fund. We've gone
Wow.
basically our first two funds. First fund, we did a full return of capital in about 3 years. We still own a couple assets in that fund, low basis and just making distributions. Second fund, pretty much the same thing. It took about 4 years to do full return of capital. Own two properties still in that fund, and just, again, low basis, making distributions, kind of infinite. Our whole model is like infinite cash return. Let's sell a couple, pick out the cherries that are we want to keep these for as long as possible, get all the capital back to our investors, and just ride off into the sunset with a number of assets that are just the primo ones out of the funds. And so we're working on that return right now with Fund 3. Fund 3, we didn't stop raising capital until August of last year. So we're kind of half the property are stabilized. The other half are still going through the value add plan inside of Fund 3. We'll probably, and it's not really the perfect environment to do cash out refinances right now. So we're kind of just waiting to see what happens and not really pushing it as far as the return of capital until we can do some recap events. So
fair enough. So did you say you guys are positioning it in such a way with what you buy that you can refinance and pull investors out?
Yes.
And keep it
not pull them out, just keep their, give them their money back. Give them their money back, allow them to stay in and ride along with us. Yeah.
That's great. On the, I did notice, which I love, that you guys have a charity arm. There's a handful of charities that you're a part of. I'd love to learn just a little bit more about when did you start to grab those charities and start working with them? I know you've got a few, Big Brother, Big Sister, and what was some of the other ones? Tiny Hands, I think one of them was. Tell us about that. When did you add that into the company?
Yeah, so Tiny Hand, or not Tiny Hands, but Big Brothers Big Sisters it's more of a personal endeavor. I got involved in it, I guess about 10 years ago. My youngest son was literally just being born, and I don't know. I just had a feeling of wanting to give back and help someone out, and I met who's now he's how old is he now? He's 22, 23. Caleb got paired up with a young boy, single mother, father had, just kind of, vacated the family and wasn't around, and just was able to be involved in his life and be a part of his upbringing. So that was it was just more of a personal endeavor. It wasn't necessarily per the company. So very rewarding experience though. We're still friends to state. In fact, he met me out in Colorado this past March to go snowboarding together. So it's a great kid and a great personal experience to be a part of his life. As far as the Tiny Hands Foundation, there's two charities I support, and it's supported through a bike ride that I started now going on our 14th year. It's called 72 Hours to Key West. I'm a cyclist. And so we basically ride from Fort Myers Beach, which is in Southwest Florida, and we ride across the Everglades all the way down to Key West over 3 days, 280 miles.
I saw that, Kevin, 280 miles. That is not for the faint of heart.
It's not.
I saw that and was like, wow, 14 years you've been doing that. That's fantastic.
And so how that really started was, like I said, I'm really close friends, near and dear friend of mine, Rod Cleef. He went through the same challenges I did in 2008, lost everything. And he had started this Tiny Hands Foundation. I don't know what year he started, but I was involved every year with food baskets during the holidays and backpack brigade during back to school, giving kids supplies. But he used to fund it himself. So the story goes he used to always self-fund it. He didn't have the infrastructure. He didn't even take donors. He used basically staff members from his company to help facilitate the endeavor every year that it came around. Sure. But when 2008 happened, he lost everything, just like a lot of us did. And basically we went from feeding 3,000 people every holiday season and giving backpacks to thousands of kids to, I think we fed 150 people in 2009. And he didn't have the infrastructure in place to bring in donors, and it was just he didn't have the time at that point either to try to go figure out how to do that. And so I was like, shit. I was like, Rod, I wish I knew a way to help. And unfortunately, I'm broke too, just like you. So the financial, I don't have financial assistance, but I've got two legs, and I really enjoy cycling. So maybe I'll put together an event, and I did it that first year. And we literally had 10 people do the ride. And now, the second year we basically sold out. I've sold out every year ever since then. And we've raised, I haven't even kept track, over $500,000. Yeah, it's definitely over $500,000 now for his charity. And there's another charity in there as well called Starting Right Now, which is another local charity here. They don't take any outside donations, any government funds or anything like that. Yeah. Basically providing life skills and support to at-risk youth. So youth that are basically unaccounted for. They're not in the system. Their parents are, whether abusive, drug addicts, what have you. but these kids want to finish school. They want to do bigger things in life, but there's not
Sure.
a home environment to do so. And so this place basically provides them not just with shelter, but also life skills, daily mentors. Like the success rate of these kids going to secondary education or the military is like 98%. It's huge. So we support that as well.
That is fantastic. Listen, it has a warm place in my heart because Quattro Capital actually came together. We had met at a multifamily event, and then I had brought on this philanthropic moment and was raising funds for single moms living in the trash dump in Nicaragua. And the two people that were the first to rise to their feet and throw in 5,500 to build a home, I said, look, I'd love to build two more. I just closed on my 104 unit. It was my first property. And the MC had said, what did you do to celebrate the close of this property? And I'd already built 12 homes for the single mamas. And that was really near and dear to my heart. And I got that little burning in my belly at that moment. I'd said, I'd love to build two more if I could get two people to match me. And I'll never forget, Kevin, the room went silent. And I thought, what in the hell did I just do? And then from the back of the room, the strapping man jumps to his feet and he's like, I'm in for 5,500. And then a woman in the front row jumps to her feet and says, I'm in for 5,500. And I kid you not, within 10 minutes, all these people start popping up. And I had raised $55,000 in this room of 1,000 investors that were at a multi-family event. And sure enough, fast forward 6 months later, Quattro Capital's birthed. And the gentleman that rose to his feet in the back of the room is my partner today, Maurice Philogene. And the woman in the front is my partner, Kim Wenland. So when I was perusing around on your website and I saw this mission that you're on to have this philanthropic cause and to pour in and change lives and have an impact as a company, it just created these warm and fuzzies. And I was like, yes, I love when other entrepreneurs can grab hold of the goodness. It's like it makes us want to go big so we can give big. And the bigger we go, the bigger we can give. And when you can link up with other like-minded individuals that get on fire for truly caring more about others than they do themselves, it's just, it just further confirms that I'm hanging out with the right crew.
Yeah, so absolutely. I agree with you. Well, that's a great story. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, like in the universe brought you and your partners together, I mean, for a reason, right? Like that's a beautiful thing. Thanks for sharing that.
It's a beautiful thing. But listen, the Lord works in mysterious ways. It's like I say, look, we've closed on 28 apartment buildings in less than 4 years and exited out of 8 and had incredible success. But it's because of the amazing, brilliant partners that I have, where we've all had times in our life where things, you get smacked in the face with different things that you're handling personally and so on and so forth. And it's amazing when you work with crew that are willing to flex. And we can be in this flow state to just love one another and help each other where we're at. And it's been so incredible doing life with them. Well, this has been amazing. I think the last thing I want to hit on is your two things. Number one, I heard that you are a craft beer and bourbon enthusiast. That is awesome. How in the world did that ever come about?
Yeah, it's funny. I can speak to craft beer, which is funny because I don't drink that much beer. I think I've shifted a little bit as I've gotten older, and I realized that drinking craft beer on a regular basis, like, definitely doesn't do too good for the figure, right? And so, and I'm truly into health and fitness, but craft beer is when they're 500 calories each, and whatever 80 carbs per beer. But no, I grew up in Pennsylvania. The Northeast and the West Coast both saw the boom of craft beers way earlier than any other part of the country. I think it started out west and somehow morphed into like the Northeast. So like in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, small town, we had like 2 craft breweries, when I was in my mid-teens. And so when I was 18, I was intrigued. I was taking a class at a local community college. It was an English 101 class. And I literally, we had to, write a paper, and I went and interviewed. For whatever reason, I was intrigued enough about the brewing process to go interview the 2 different brewers at these 2 different breweries. And I ended up landing a job. Wasn't really looking for that. I ended up getting a bartending job at the one brewery, and just learned about the process and just became really intrigued with craft beer at that point in my life. So as far as the bourbon thing, I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe just the evolution as I aged and got older and got a more sophisticated palate. I'm not sure about that, but I definitely enjoy a bourbon. Definitely enjoy a cigar every once in a while. But
That's great. I saw and learned a little bit too that you're big into
I like wine. I did. My wife and I love wine.
Yes, right here. If we go back,
we enjoy traveling, and we enjoy the process of traveling and going to different areas, different regions, and visiting wineries. So we like wine a lot, but I think it's more so we like our time together when we go do. It's just like a little hobby of ours, and
I love it. I saw that you. I forget the name of it. Cruise and Brews or Run for Brews.
Yeah. I no longer. Yeah.
I've ran 16 marathons, and when I saw that, I was like, look, you find a way to stay healthy, but have some fun too, and it makes for great conversation.
Yeah. So the funny thing is the Running for Brews thing was that, and the clothing company you had mentioned, that those two things became my outlet from 2008 to like 2011, because I was in such a damage control mode. It's just really hard to pull your head out of the sand, and like just so much not bad things, but financially bad things happening around you.
Yeah.
Health and fitness was really important to me. It had always been, but I really like leaned into it in a big way, because it was the only thing I could really control, was like how I felt when I woke up in the morning. So I really dove deep into just fitness, and not just fitness in general, but more so running, triathlons. That's how I found my love for cycling. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I need to figure out a way to make money out of this, right? Like, and so long story short, Running for Brews happened because I just moved in with my wife at that time to her place. And I was like, look, I'm going to start a local running club. I'm going to go drink beer at the brewery, local brewery. And she didn't like craft brew, and she never liked to go to the brewery. So I was like, I'm going to start a run once a week, and we're going to meet at that brewery on Thursday nights, and we're going to go run 3 to 5 miles, and we're going to come back and drink beer. She was like, that's the dumbest idea ever. No one's going to join. And I put it on meetup.com, and I remember I like planned the first one a month out, and like 20 people showed up. It was like, ding, ding. And then we ended up basically morphed into a plan to where some of the locations we were at hundreds of people on a night, and we'd pick the slowest night from the brewery and say, hey, give us a discount on beers. And then they would pay us per head is what it morphed into. They'd pay us per head, and we'd bring a ton of business in on their slowest night of the week. And we grew it to like 40 locations in a number of different states. And anyway, so it was more of
it's amazing
way for me to drink craft beer and go running and meet new people. But then ultimately it morphed into a business after that. And
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was fun. Meet like-minded people, right? I mean, go hang out with others that enjoy health and fitness and enjoy a craft beer after a run. And it was a fun
Why
thing.
not? Hey, it goes back to your network is your net worth. And if you can kill two birds with one stone and make sure you get your exercise in and have fun, I'm all for it. I think it's amazing. Well, listen, I've absolutely enjoyed doing this with you. Like I said, I can't wait to a new friendship. I found someone that's truly got some grit and hunger, got a few irons in the fire, and you top that with impact and sowing goodness into other people's lives. Yes, please. So offline, I'd like to connect, and I'm also happy to get forward and come and join you on one of your podcasts. And
we'll make that happen.
This role. So, well, listen, it was so wonderful meeting you and getting to have a little chat up here. How can our guests dig in and learn more about you and be able to connect with you?
Yeah, great question. 2 different ways. If you want to learn more about our company, Sunrise Capital Investors, you can go over to investwithsunrise.com. You can see our current opportunity that we have open. But also, we put a lot of information out there. We even go as far as putting individual deal-specific information of deals that we currently own, deals that we've gone full cycle on. We put appraisals up. We put kind of an overview of the business plan, how it started, what it ended up like, what we sold it for, things like that. And so a lot of granular stuff on our website as well. We just kind of be transparent and showcase what it is we do. So lots of info there. And if you want to learn about me personally, or I host a podcast as well on a weekly basis, you can go to my personal website, which is kevinbupp.com. And you can also reach out to me directly through that website as well.
Fantastic. Well, it was great having you on here. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon, pal.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
We hope this episode was insightful and brought value to your day. If so, please be awesome and leave us a 5-star review. Find out how Team Quattro can help you at thequattroway.com and scroll down for more info. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Runway Podcast.